In 1162, on the brutal, wind-swept steppes of Mongolia, a child was born, clutching a clot of blood in his tiny fist. A prophecy. His name was Temüjin. This was not the birth of a king. It was the birth of a survivor. His early life was defined by one thing: loss. When he was 9, his father, a minor clan leader, was poisoned by a rival tribe. His own clan, seeing no value in a widow and her small children, did the unthinkable. They abandoned them. Temüjin, his mother, and his siblings were left to die on the open steppe. They were the ultimate outcasts. They survived on wild roots, marmots, and whatever fish they could catch. This is where the iron entered his soul. He wasn't just poor, he was hunted. He learned that survival was a zero-sum game. And in a chilling act of cold, pragmatic brutality, he murdered his own half-brother in a dispute over a single fish. He was 10 years old. His suffering was just beginning. The rival tribe that had abandoned his family, the Temüjids, returned. They saw the young Temüjin as a future threat. They hunted him down, and he was captured. For months, or perhaps years, he was paraded as their slave. He was locked in a kangwe, a heavy wooden collar that chafed his neck raw and pinned his arms, a symbol of total humiliation. He was a piece of property, spat on by the very people who had betrayed his family. This was his Tower of London moment. He learned to be patient. He learned to observe. And one night during a feast he saw his chance. He knocked out his guard, and still locked in the massive wooden collar, he fled, hiding submerged in a river, breathing through a reed. He had learned his first great lesson: wait for your enemy to get drunk and arrogant, then strike. A free man, but still a nobody, Temüjin knew he could not survive alone. He did the only thing he could. He sought out his father's old anda, or blood brother, a powerful Khan named Togrul. He came to him not as a warrior, but as a beggar, offering the only thing of value he had, his new wife Berta's dowry, a single beautiful sable fur coat. Togrul, honoring the old alliance, accepted. Temüjin now had a patron. He had power, and he would need it immediately. In a devastating raid, a rival tribe, the Merkits, attacked. They kidnapped his new wife, Berta, an act of revenge for his father's long-ago kidnapping of his mother. Temüjin was now faced with his first great test as a leader. He didn't just despair, he acted. He rallied his new patron, Togrul, and his childhood anda, a charismatic and popular young noble named Jamukha. Together they led a daring raid, crushed the Merkits, and rescued his wife. Temüjin was now a Khan, a leader of men, a man known for his loyalty and his ferocity. For a time, Temüjin and Jamukha, his blood brother, were inseparable. They were the two most powerful young warlords on the steppe, but their alliance was doomed. It was a clash of two opposing worldviews. Jamukha was an aristocrat. He believed power belonged to the highborn, the blue-blooded nobles. Temüjin was a meritocrat. He was an outcast who had climbed from the gutter. He believed power should go to the most loyal, the most skilled, and the most ruthless, regardless of their birth. The common people and low-ranking warriors flocked to Temüjin's banner, seeing a new kind of leader. Jamukha saw this as a betrayal. The two greatest friends became the two most bitter rivals. The steppe was plunged into a new civil war, this one personal. Jamukha, in a brutal act, had Temüjin's generals boiled alive. Temüjin, in response, met him on the battlefield and, using his new disciplined tactics, utterly crushed him. Jamukha's own men, seeing the tide turn, betrayed their leader and handed him to Temüjin in chains. Temüjin was now faced with a terrible choice. He offered to forgive his blood brother, but Jamukha, proud to the end, refused. He asked for an honorable death, a noble's death without blood being spilled. Temüjin granted his request. He had his men break Jamukha's back. He had killed his only rival. He was now the undisputed master of the steppe. In 1206, the Great Council, the Kurultai, was called. Temüjin, the outcast, the slave, was declared Genghis Khan, the oceanic ruler, the Khan of all Khans. But he knew the fragile loyalty of the tribes would splinter the moment he died. He had to remake their entire society. He did two things that would change the world forever. First, he created the Yasa, A new legal code. Loyalty was no longer to your tribe or your family. It was to the Khan. Betrayal, cowardice, and desertion were punishable by death. Second, he built his army. He shattered the old tribal divisions, mixing all the tribes into new units called tumens, 10,000 men. A man's promotion was based on one thing: merit. He promoted his most brilliant, loyal generals, men like Subutai, the Hound of War, to the highest commands. He drilled them in tactics the world had never seen: the feigned retreat, the pincer movement, the use of psychological warfare, and, most importantly, the ruthless adoption of his enemy's technology. When he conquered China, he didn't just kill. He harvested their engineers, learning to build the massive siege engines that would make him unstoppable. The apocalypse machine was built. Now, it needed a target. He first turned on the Khwarezmian Empire in Persia. He sent a trade caravan. The Shah of Khwarezm, arrogant and foolish, had the merchants killed and the ambassadors' beards burned off, a grave insult. Genghis Khan's response was not a war, it was an extermination. This is the moment from your other Mongols video. This is the origin of the surrender or die policy. He unleashed Subutai in a 4,000-mile flanking maneuver across a supposedly impassable desert. He besieged their great cities, and he introduced his policy of calculated terror. At the city of Samarkand, he offered his terms. The soldiers who resisted were all executed. The civilians were spared. But at the next city, which did resist, he made an example. He had every man, woman, and child massacred. He reportedly built a pyramid of their skulls. He wasn't just conquering, he was terror farming. His message spread faster than his army. The Mongols are coming. To fight them is to be erased from existence. He was the slave from the steppe, and he was now the most terrifying man on earth. He had conquered China. He had annihilated Persia. He was planning the invasion of Europe, the one his grandsons would later carry out. But he was mortal. In 1227, while on campaign, he died. Some say he fell from his horse. Some say it was illness. Some say he was murdered by a captured princess. His final act was his most enduring mystery. He ordered that his burial be an absolute secret. A funeral procession carried his body back to Mongolia. According to legend, every living thing that witnessed the procession, every man, woman, child, and animal, was killed by the 2,000-man honor guard. When the Khan was finally buried, that honor guard was then, in turn, executed by a final guard, who then, to a man, committed suicide. His tomb, rumored to be filled with the treasures of half the world, has never been found. He had built the largest land empire in human history, an empire that, under his sons, would stretch from the Pacific Ocean to the gates of Vienna. But the man himself, the slave who became a god, simply vanished.